When we talk about generational wealth, most people think about money. But for many families, it's much deeper than that. It's about stability and building something that wasn't available to our ancestors.
And for so many watching, this is personal. It shows up in student loans and housing searches and career ceilings.
For Black History Month this year, we're returning to Johnson C. Smith University, the historic Black university in the heart of Charlotte's West End.
Oh, get ready for a powerful conversation today. Welcome into Local Roots as we celebrate Black History Month on Queen City News Plus. I'm Alicia Barnes, and this year we're bringing you into just an honest and very transparent conversation about generational wealth, what it really means, what it historically felt, why it's been just out of reach for so many people of color, so many communities, and how that shift is starting to happen and how we're starting to be able to talk about this narrative. I have a very special guest with me today, one of the hosts of this Black History Special, Khalif Rose. Thank you so much for being here. And also we have Julian Sador, who is not here, but we definitely want to give him a shout out. But this conversation, I mean, we had an amazing panel, amazing discussion on generational wealth.
Yeah, the conversation started off great. You got folks that have different backgrounds, people that may have had wealth when they were younger, folks that, had introduction to wealth as they got older. You had athletes, you had people, you had students, you had people across the spectrum. So for me, I'm sitting there watching, listening, learning as a student. It was great that we were on the college campus because I felt like I was learning more than I was giving.
You were getting schooled on campus.
100% getting schooled.
Before we get any further, let's show you who was on that panel. Take a look.
Starting with President of Bank of America Charlotte, Keith Cockrell. Mr. Cockrell is widely recognized as a champion for diversity, equity, and inclusion, earning numerous leadership awards for his work advancing opportunity and inclusive growth. He's also served on numerous boards, including right here at Johnson C. Smith University.
Dr. Valerie Kinlock is president of Johnson C. Smith University. And here on campus, she has been a voice for education as an engine of economic mobility, workforce preparation, leadership development, and generational opportunity. With nearly 3 decades of experience in higher education, Dr. Kinlock has distinguished herself as a passionate educator. She is the recent recipient of so many awards and designations, including the 2010 Era Scholars of Color Early Career Award and the 2015 OSU Distinguished Diversity Award.
Dr. Amy Steele works at the intersection of education and real estate and is a loving wife and mother of 5 who serves as president of the Queen City chapter of Jack and Jill of America Incorporated. She is also the CEO of Maleo Real Estate Incorporated and the CEO of the new North Carolina project Action First. Her work centers on access, opportunity, and developing the next generation of leaders.
Al Wallace is a retired NFL veteran of 10 years and a former Carolina Panther, an entrepreneur and business leader who experienced financial success early and learned firsthand the difference between earning income and building long-term wealth.
Brandon Gillespie is a student panelist at Elizabeth City State University, and he recently earned his commercial license and is passionate about encouraging more African Americans to pursue careers in aviation, a field he believes remains underrepresented. He's born and raised right here in Charlotte.
So now you know who was on our panel, and you can understand why we're saying this was such a powerful conversation. The purpose of what we're doing here is you're streaming with us on Queen City News Plus. We thank you first. It's really to kind of take a deeper dive, Khalif, on this conversation. What really stood out to you?
I mean, first of all, I'd probably start with Keith Cockrell, someone I've known for a number of years, a legend in not just in the local community, but across the country. He drops gems every time I talk with him. But to be able to be in the room and give his insight into what wealth looks like, what parenting looks like, for me as a parent of 4, I'm like, again, just take me to school and let me know how you can have highly successful children while still attempting to chase generational wealth and finding ways to create it. I mean, because the difference between income and wealth wasn't explained to me as a child because we weren't talking about generational wealth. We were trying to figure out how we can make it from day to day, paycheck to paycheck, different project to different project. So when you have someone like him that can give you that insight and always talk about pouring back into the community in action, in words, that was probably the best part about it. And I think Amy Steele, with her information she dropped on the way she set up her kids for success by putting their wealth into a trust and having those goals for them to be able to meet it before they can access that wealth that they have created. It kind of put me in the mindset of what Shaq said. He talked to his kids about them saying we're wealthy or we're rich. And he was like, no, I'm rich. Right. You're not, and those are the things that when she said, I've created these barriers in place for them to be able to have to meet or exceed before they can access what I created. I mean, that's something that my wife and I have started to do, but she made it seem like it's something they've been doing for a long time.
Well, the other thing, too, with this project, I think for this special in particular, we included everybody. Mm-hmm. So it went from whether you were young and you were a student and you were just getting into college, taking you through the full spectrum. Let's play a clip right now to kind of bring you into part of the special that stood out to us.
Al, I want to come to you and kind of tie in education, but also wealth. Taking you back to the early 2000s, because an injury had you out of football, you were actually working as a assistant principal. And then the Dolphins call, you get traded to the Panthers, but you had something that I don't think many people experience, where you had a chance to make a lot of money. You come down to work in education, and then you get back up to the NFL. How did that change your perspective of financial wealth and generational wealth?
To go back and work in education, and the salaries were quite different from the NFL, to working as an assistant principal of a high school, I think, but the reward, right, that feeling I got from being able to give back and pour into kids that were like me, that had that same hope in their eyes, made a difference. Now, I talked about falling down and getting back up. I got a second opportunity and was able to make a great run here with the Carolina Panthers, 2 NFC championships since the Super Bowl is coming up, Super Bowl 38, of course, but that kind of life lesson of it kind of being down and never giving up and fighting back is what you pass on. And so it was a great lesson, especially in teaching my kid wealth, credit, and those things that I didn't come with. My family did not teach me that. And when I heard, like, when I was a small kid, my dad taught me about, investing, I'm blown away, because I was an adult before I understood the value in that. I grew up with a box under the mattress, put a couple dollars away, and not knowing that it was possible to have, invest and build trust and do those types of things that were secure, not just that income that I was making in the NFL, but wealth later on for my family. And I think that's very important.
But still, in our public educational system, we really don't teach credit, or now recognizing in today's environment, so many of our college-educated youth are coming out with massive amounts of debt, right? Much different than when I came out of school. And so they're already in debt and now trying to figure out how can I afford a home? And the cost, the inflationary pressures that we've received over the last several years. And so there is this obligation now to recognize that I'm not the expert. Maybe I didn't learn this in primary school or in college, but I can still seek, we're learning animals, I can still seek information. And all of us in financial services have that obligation really to try to reach more neighbors and friends on not just trust, but what is in credit score. And we like to say generally, if you're proud of your last name, treat your credit that way. Yes.
I think that was one of the most powerful lessons there, when your credit score, when you hear the president of Bank of America in Charlotte tell you that has to be a priority. I mean, that just really hit home. You saw the head nods that I thought as the conversation was going on.
We're all nodding our heads. I was nodding my head. Everyone's nodding their head. And a lot of that for me was, I wish I would have heard this 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and not learn it, as I was trying to, as I say, build the plane and fly it at the same time. Okay, you're already getting money now, but you don't know what to do with it. It would have been great to have known these things before I ever started making money, so I could have been not missing the mark and not learning as I on the fly.
Well, speaking of knowing, we have so much more coming up on Queen City News Plus here on Local Roots as we continue this conversation of part 2, looking at our Black History Special this month, a conversation about generational wealth. Some families who have LLCs employ their children through legitimate, documented work, not loopholes, but to build responsibility and financial literacy, as we've been talking about. So how does this work for people watching to really understand? Because I think as we're getting older, we're hearing, I can have my child be my employee. This could be able to save on taxes. This could help build generational wealth. Explain all this to us, Dr. Steele.
So I'm not an accountant.
Again.
Nor an attorney. The best thing you can do is if you have an LLC or a corporation, an S Corp, C Corp, et cetera, employ your children if you can. Put them on payroll, well, for a variety of reasons. Instead of you paying, their allowance, right, per week or per month, you can use the vehicle of employing them to do a job in your corporation or to do a job in your LLC, and then use that strategy to pay them that way instead of just paying them out of your pocket. Because paying them out of your pocket as, just paying their allowance, that doesn't provide you any kind of incentive to be able to pass that income through your LLC.
Actually, we had the inverse. My wife is employed by my daughter. My daughter's a professional athlete. She has her own LLC, and she's competing and training hard. And so Serena is momager, and she's managing the things outside the track or off the track for my daughter. And from our perspective, there's no better person. She's known her entire life. It's a trusted relationship, and she's got her best interest in mind. Yeah, and there's some distinct advantages associated with that because of travel expenses. She's at 1099, if you will, for Anna Cockrell's LLC. But the reality of the situation is that she's got a trusted source to help her achieve what she's trying to achieve in this first career of being a professional athlete.
Brandon, I want to go to you and talk about, representation and financial access, because you're doing something that I'll admit that I didn't think was even possible when I was a kid for people that look like us. You're pursuing a career in aviation. And when we think about a career in aviation, a lot of people think about the financial barriers there because it costs a lot to go to flight school. Not many people know if you go to college that has an aviation program, that can lower the barrier significantly. Can you talk about how you figured out you wanted to be an aviator and then how you figured out the pathway to get that done?
Yes, thank you so much. So I figured out that I wanted to be an aviator since I was a child. I loved aircraft. Actually, I live about 5 minutes from Concord Regional Airport, so I got to see all the Cessnas and jets just flying over me every day when I was outside playing ball. The black population is 1% of 1% in the aviation industry. But being able to see black mentors in the aviation industry led me to understand that I can do this as well. When I was going to college, my father and my mother were in hardship, so they did not have the credit that was required for me to receive a cosigner. If you don't have a cosigner, you are not eligible for private loans. So they told me, go where you have the most scholarship that is eligible for you, where the free money's at. I went to Kent State University, and being a first-generation aviator, I did not know that the flight fees were not included in the tuition. So you're paying for your public school, all your fees, housing, books, and then you're on top of that, you're paying for your flight fees. They can be by the hour, wet rate, including fuel. You can also end up paying your instructor, and the instructor fee could be as much as $50 an hour. That's out of your pocket. I completed my private at Kent State University, and I realized very quick, I'm not going to be able to afford the rest of my ratings. I decided, you know what, I'm gonna finish. I received my degree in aeronautical studies, and then I transferred to Elizabeth City State University. Is an in-state program, so I'm not paying out-of-state fees. And on top of that, the flight fees are significantly cheaper. Is at HBCU. I felt welcome the entire time that I was there.
Now I'm sitting here thinking about when I graduated with my PhD from Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan, and went to my first tenure track position at the University of Houston downtown campus, open admissions university. And I sat there with the human resources person. And they go over everything. These are your keys, your ID, your health plan, your benefits, your retirement contribution. We're just doing this. And when she said retirement contributions, I was like, tell me about this. Well, this is what the university puts in. If you put this in, you get this. And I said, if I put this in, the university's going to give me this percentage. And she was like, yes, and you can put more in. Sign me up. I want everything I can get. Had no idea about retirement contributions. I just knew that if some other institution was going to give me a match, and it was my responsibility to make sure that every month before I saw it, I'm making the same amount contributing in, why wouldn't I?
So coming back here, I mean, Dr. Kinlock is just amazing. We know that, right? But going back to Brandon, the student, the aviator, I just felt it in the room when he was walking us through the hardship. And you hear a young person say, I realized I could not afford my dream.
Yeah, I can connect with that. I as someone that didn't have parents with means, went to school, financial aid was a big part. Played basketball, scholarship was a big part. So for me, going to school,
basketball?
I played college basketball.
How tall are you, Khalid?
I'm short, but I could jump out the gym back in the day. Can't touch the backboard now, but I could dunk with two hands easily back in the day. So for me, that was something that I knew that was a possibility of going to school. I just didn't know how we could do it.
Yeah.
So listening to him, I remember looking at those FAFSA applications, looking at, okay, how are we going to pay to get this thing to occur? And not knowing if my dream was going to fizzle out in front of me. So I can relate to what he was saying 100% because that was me.
There were so many pearls of wisdom that we just in that little soundbite right there that we were able to show you. But just taking the transparency of the conversation that I thought was so amazing that everybody in the room was just very real.
I mean, that's the best part.
We have our ups and downs.
You need that. If you're not going to be real in those type of conversations, it's going to make for a dry and boring interview. But the fact that everyone was able to just be open and vulnerable and say, I'm here to share, to help, to make sure that someone else isn't going through this in the future, I mean, that made it amazing.
Yeah. Speaking of amazing, okay, coming up after this break, stay with us because each panelist is going to show you and share what their big main takeaway that they do not want you to miss, regardless what age you are, where you are in the spectrum of where you want in your generational wealth. We'll be right back. Well, as we've now talked about the history and talked about the barriers, as we close, we want to bring this home on the campus of Johnson C. Smith University. My last question for each of you to be able to answer is this. What's the financial lesson that you refuse to let the next generation miss?
I think my final lesson would be protection. I started in the NFL at 21 years old, 22 years old, retired at 32. So how do you protect what you've built? And I think, understanding credit, understanding tax ramifications on your finances, things like that for me are the lessons that I want to instill in my kids on how to protect what we've built. And it's not just hiding it away and tucking it away. It's how to make it grow, but protection of some of the wealth and the thing, wealth of time as well. And I think that's key to me at this point in my life. How do I protect my time and my decision making and where I choose to go and continue to build on that wealth for myself and my family?
Anyone can get credit. The question is how much you're going to pay for it. And learning how to leverage credit. So we've heard throughout this conversation multiple strategies in terms of how to buy, because when you're young, you're in acquisition mode. You need independent housing. You may need transportation, things of that nature. Because now I don't have to divest in investments if I'm trying to do some other things from a private equity perspective or things of that nature, because now I can use my assets or use credit to acquire potentially more wealth in terms of other business opportunities that I might be interested in.
That's great. I would say three things. Read, insurance, and entrepreneurship. So read as much as you can. And by reading, I mean learn. So help to reduce the knowledge gap. If you don't know about credit, read about credit. Watch a TikTok about credit. Watch an Instagram reel about credit. Do something, whatever your barrier or your entry level is to learning in your life, do that. If it's Facebook, do that. Find some source that seems credible and look at it, read it, watch it, etc. Second thing, entrepreneurship. Start a business. Everyone should have some type of entrepreneurial venture somewhere in their family. It doesn't have to be every person in the family, but it should be someone within the family who has some type of entrepreneurial venture. Is insurance. My husband is a pastor. I can't tell you how many people we bury in a year and how many funerals we have to help plan because families are so distraught that, number one, they don't have finances to be able to bury their loved one. They need help planning the funeral because they're so distraught and no one has plans.
Yeah, I would like to chime in and say reading is essential as a college student. I know, and talking to all other college students, I know you're tired of reading those books, but you have to think about it like this. Whenever you go to that YouTube video that says how to become a millionaire in 10 steps, and it's a 10-minute video, it's not going to have all the information in that 300-page book. It has 10 minutes worth of content so that it can captivate your eye and it can get that ad revenue. You're going to have to read, you have to do the hard work in order to be successful.
My colleague said all of it, especially you. I mean, you are it. I'm going to start saying you are a Johnson C. Smith University student because I know you're not, but come on over here. Right. Well, he's about to graduate in May, right?
Yes.
I mean, you know, maybe you can work here or something. I don't know. Maybe you can talk to the president. I don't know.
He's going to start an aviation program.
I think so. I guess I would say it's never too late. It's never too late to start, regardless of how old you are. It's never too late or how young you are. And, you know, for me, it's interesting because we never had these conversations when I was growing up in my household. And when I think about my father who, you know, didn't graduate from high school, smartest person I know, I think about my mother, a retired nurse, and all of the folks in my family, and we did not have these conversations. And I contend that it's never too late to start. And so reading, you have to research. And then you get someone like me who comes from a first generation, who's first generation, and I'm a college president, and I'm walking around this campus and I'm telling my students financial literacy, and we need to do more. And I'm talking to my professors, financial literacy. We need to offer more, and we are. It is never too late. And so I say that because, you know, my husband tells me, you're reading everything else. You need to read these books on financial literacy at the highest level. And so you can have a great credit score. You can have money tucked away somewhere. But if you are not investing and diversifying those investments, then your money is not growing.
Growing your money, generational wealth. That's what we're talking about, Khalif. I mean, I just felt, just watching that clip right there, it just brought us back to being inside that room. It was so powerful. The information was wealth right there.
Definitely dynamic conversation. I'll hit on a couple things. A statement I read a lot says, work hard. You work hard in your 20s, work smart in your 30s, work how you want in your 40s, work when you want in your 50s, and work if you want in your 60s. Dr. Kinlock hit something really great there when she said, it's never too late. And oftentimes I think about, man, it's too late for me to create and have the generational wealth that I think I need to leave my kids. But because in my 20s, I wasn't working hard. I was, doing everything in my power to not work hard. And in my 30s, I kind of figured it out. And I feel like oftentimes you don't have to start where everyone else starts. And this conversation reinforced that to me, like, you haven't died yet.
Right.
Keep growing it.
But another thing in terms of growing, like what Dr. Amy Steele was talking about, when you have kids, you have 4 kids, she has 5 kids, I have 2 kids, you're thinking how you're growing your money, but we know it costs a lot of money to raise these kids. But switching that money around so that you're able to get a tax benefit, I thought was critical to this.
She dropped gems, and for sure, I'm trying to dig all the gems out. You got to watch the rest of the special to find all the gems.
Right, there's so much. And if you have already seen part 1, if you happen to be able to catch that on Queen City News, during the newscast, you can watch this whole special in its entirety on our YouTube page. But hopefully right now you're thinking differently about investing and your opportunities and just what you have going on in your own financial picture.
Yeah, I mean, this, again, the panelists, they were there. They were handpicked to ensure that they could bring their life experience, their educational experience, their wealth of knowledge to this conversation about creating, sustaining, growing generational wealth. But if, as the moderators, as the hosts, we're sitting there asking questions, but I say this not flippantly. I'm taking notes like, wow, write that down, look that up, continue to read. I'm always trying to find ways to educate myself. The legal profession requires that we do continual legal education. Well, in the world of generational wealth, it needs to be continual generational wealth education, because if you don't, what worked before may not work now. Trying to find ways to sustain it is the key for me.
And I have to toot your own horn. I know he's not going to do it for himself. So let everybody know. I mean, you're a defense attorney. You have your own practice. What last pearl would you drop for everybody?
I mean, what I would say is the major difference between income and wealth is probably the biggest key, because in a profession like mine, you can earn a lot in a short amount of time. And if you're not doing the right things with it, your moment of high earning time, it may be gone. Like, it's kind of equated to an NFL player and an NBA player. When you're hot, you want to gather and obtain as much as you can but you want to be doing the right things with it. So making sure you have some retirement plan, ensuring that you're investing and not just, spending.
Right.
And you said it's hard to do that when you got 4 kids, but it has to be as important. That investment has to be the 5th kid for us.
Right.
Are we putting as much money in the investment?
That is such a great way to put that.
Kid?
Make the investment be that 3rd kid or that 4th kid. I love that. I'm going to take that with me. Khalif, appreciate it. And we just love the fact that you're here with us, joining this conversation, streaming with us here on Queen City News Plus. This is a special edition of Local Roots. I'm Alicia Barnes. Khalif Rhodes joining us. And we also have to give a special shout out to Julian Sador, who is not here. He was also one of the hosts of this special, and everybody behind the scenes at Queen City News. I mean, this really was just a whole group effort. So, congratulations to everybody, and more to be able to come. We thank you for streaming with us on Queen City News Plus.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.